For this video, we're going to look at adding the interactive component of our project to Unity. And this is what's called a first-person shooter component. And what the first-person shooter will let us do is maneuver around our scene using the control keys W, S, A, and D, which are pretty standard on first-person shooter games. So what it means is we'll actually be able to move around and explore our area, our environment that we've created. Remembering in the last lesson I looked at putting colliders onto objects, which will stop the first-person shooter element from falling through the ground, and placing on the buildings and on the walls and the containers will prevent me from being able to walk through them like they have no structural physics to them, which was in the last lesson. Adding the first-person shooter is actually really easy, and to do that we're going to go to the asset store and download some standard assets which are used within Unity. And one of the standard assets which comes with that asset pack is the first-person shooter. We're going to use a thing called a prefab. It's really easy. All we do is go to the prefab and just drag it and drop it onto our scene, and we have the working interactivity that we need. So what I'm going to do is go to the asset store, which you'll need to do to complete this, and hopefully something will appear on the asset store. I'm just connecting to it. If you're logged in, it should be all good. It seems my internet is very slow at the moment, but you can see here there's the asset store. What we're going to look for under the search is standard asset. So I've already used it before. If we click on standard asset, you'll see a number of things comes up, and this one here, which I've already purchased, which is called Unity Technology Standard Assets. We just need to click on that and download and install it. So just accept cookies. I've already downloaded it, so I can just hit import, and that will import it into my workspace, so I don't need to download it twice. When you're importing the elements from the asset store, you'll get a little menu which appears here on the left, like you can see here. We're going to import everything because some of the scripts which are used to make the first-person shooter character work are inside some unexpected areas. So I'm just going to click on, everything's clicked on, hit import, and it's basically going to go through and import all these elements and assets in. Excuse me. So the assets include a number of materials and objects and things like that, which you can use in any Unity project. But the important thing here is that once it's installed, and it'll take a little bit of time, the asset that I want to bring in will be under characters, and it will be a thing called a prefab. And a prefab is a preset and pre-scripted element which we can bring into Unity. So you really only need to download the standard assets once, and it is just taking a little bit of time to load up, which will allow me to keep talking. You can see down here in my materials, I've got a whole lot of materials coming in. When I go back to my assets, and it's just installing things at the moment, so it won't let me go back, we'll actually create a folder inside my assets called standard assets, which will have its own materials and other elements that I can work with. And it looks like it's almost done. So you can see a whole lot of prefabs going on at the moment, and that's completed. So that's all I need from the asset store. I'm going to go back to my scene and go back to my assets here, and you'll see that added to my assets folder is this one called standard assets. So you need to make sure you have this installed for the first-person shooter controller to be applied. It's really easy from here. It's simply dragging and dropping the right component on. So I'm going to double click on it. There's a whole lot of preset and pre-made elements here, and what I want is characters. So essentially the first-person shooter is a character. You can see here we've got first-person components, so I double click on that, and I'm going to go to prefabs, and as I said, prefabs are pre-built components. We can see here FPS controller, which is first-person shooter controller. It actually has some elements which have already been filled in, so we don't actually need to modify or do anything to that. So I'm just going to click on it and drag it on and drop it inside my scene. And there's a few things we can do here. We can see that my controller, and it's kind of highlighted in green, is kind of sitting in the ground. So I can use my move tool to make it taller or move it away out of the ground. And I can also use the scale to make it smaller, because you can make your first person shooter into a giant if you so choose. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit more human size, and that's in comparison to the container that you see there and the house there. Basically, the first person shooter controller allows us to control a camera and move a camera around the workspace. And we can test what it looks like just by going to Game. And you can see here, this is the point of view of the camera. And if I actually want to test it, I can just hit the play button here. And what that will do is give me control. So at the moment I've got control. So if I move my mouse, I can look around. So I have mouse controls on it. And if I walk forward, I can actually start now to move around my workspace. And because I've got a collider on the ground, I'm not falling through the ground. And because I've got a collider on the wall, I can only walk into the wall. I can only walk into the containers, can only walk into the brick walls here. So this is the controller which everybody will need inside their environment to maneuver around. Now if I walk off the edge of my plane here, what will happen is my controller will just start falling for infinity, because there's nothing underneath it. There's no terrain or ground, so I can fall forever if I walk off the edge here. So I need to be very, very careful, kind of maneuvering around. Oh, there you go, I've fallen off the edge and I'm going to fall for oblivion forever. So I'm going to hit escape and stop my play button there, which will take me back to the start. And that's all you need to do. I'm going to go back from the Game tab to the scene so you can actually see it. This is the interactivity which we need to add to Unity to create our interactivity in our project. It's pretty easy to do. Remember, download the standard assets, go to characters, first person character, prefabs, and then just drag and drop the first person shooter controller on. Really easy to do, and it's quite a lot of fun to move around your environment once you've done that.